Welcome back from the break. We hope you're able to refresh your coffee or tea to help move us right into the remaining presentations. Our next group of presentations will cover listing your drug using CDER Direct, including demonstrations of CDER Direct drug listing, listing a combination product, strength conversion and drug listing, listing updates and delisting, and blanket no change certification. Our presenters include Troy Koo, Technical Information Specialist, Drug Registration and Listing Branch in the Office of Compliance, Leila Raju-Esfandiari, Lead Consumer Safety Officer, Drug Registration Listing Branch in the Office of Compliance, Yogesh Paruthi, Consumer Safety Officer in the Drug Registration and Listing Branch, also in the Office of Compliance, and Vikas Arora, Pharmacist in the Drug Registration and Listing Branch, Office of Compliance. Please join me to welcome our first presenter in this session, Troy Koo.
Welcome back. I hope everyone have a good break. Hello, my name is Troy Koo. I'm a technical information specialist. Today, I'm going to show you how to submit a product listing using CDER Direct. Here's my overview. We will go over who need to list and when that need to happen. And we'll do a live demonstration to show what needs to be included in a drug listing. And then a quick summary and go over do and done and some helpful resources. And then we'll finish up with the challenge question. The goal of the presentation is to help registrants submit accurate and compliant product listing and can facilitate engagement with FDA. So drug listing, who have to do it? Basically, if you are required to register, then you are required to list your drug product. There are very few exceptions to that. If you are a contract manufacturer or CMO, you must list under your own label code. With regard CMO to manufacturer for private label distributor, such as Walgreens, CVS, they don't participate in manufacturing process and they are exempt from registration. CMO who make a drug for them will have to list under CMO label code, and then they also have to list under PLD label code. However, PLD may elect to list on their own as authorized agent for CMO. Next, when the drug listing has to happen, initially, drug listing has to be submitted within 3 days of the initial registration. Okay. Any update have to be done every June and December. However, there are no need to wait to submit an update. In fact, we encourage firms to update as soon as possible. Lastly, with regard to annual listing certification, an update to your drug listing SPL to certify your listing for the next calendar year. For example, if you're making an update to your drug listing SPL last week, then you don't need to recertify your listing this year. But we will talk about the blank no change certification later in this section. Now I will start the live demonstration on how to submit a drug listing SPL using CDER Direct. So first thing first, you have to log in. Now on the left hand side, you see a different type of submissions. Okay. For listing, we're going to select the product listing and certification, and then create new upload file. For this demonstration, I'm going to select create a new product listing. In the drop down, I'm going to select human OTC drug label. Continue. As you can see, the document type is pre-populated as a human OTC drug label, and the set ID is generated. This set ID is linked to this listing, okay? And this must remain the same throughout the life of the listing, okay? The roof ID, on the other hand, is specific to this version. So you can see it here, the version is number 1, okay? So as you update the version, the roof ID change as well. Next, we have labeler detail, okay? Here you will include the labeler name and the labeler done, or whoever marketing this product, okay? So for the labeler name, I'm just gonna make up something. See, and then we're gonna make up a 9-digit labeler done. And then next we have registrant detail. Okay, so this is if you are a contract manufacturer and you are listing on behalf of the PLD, then you put the information here, okay? So I am just gonna leave it blank for now. Okay, so next is establishments section, okay? We wanna know who manufactured this product, okay? So in order to add establishments, we're gonna select add establishments. Under the establishment detail, you're gonna need to fill in all the blanks, okay? So for establishment name, let's just call workshop LLC, and then for the establishment done, and then the business operation. So for the workshop LLC, we're gonna say it's an API manufacturer, and then gonna have to provide a product NDC of this listing. Now, if you don't want this information to public, then you can select, put a check on confidential, okay? Otherwise, you can just leave it blank. Now that I have filled in all the information, I'm gonna hit the say establishment. Now that I have one establishment added, if you have more than one establishment that involved with this product, then you will follow the same steps to add the second one, third one, and fourth one, and so on and so on, okay? Now, next is products. To add product, we're gonna click on Add Products. Okay, under data, product data elements, the NDC product code is required. So put one in here. And then proprietary name, it's gonna call as hand sanitizer. Alcohol, it's gonna be my non-proprietary name. The subjects and the DEA schedule are not applied to this product, so I'm just gonna leave it blank and not doing anything with it. For the dosage form, it's gonna be gel. And then my route of administration, topical. All right, source NDC, I am not a repacker, so I don't have to provide a source NDC. Next section is marketing detail. Okay, so there are two options. One is active and one complete. Active means the product is on the market. Okay, complete meaning the market is no longer on the market. Right, so I'm going to select active, and then I have to provide a marketing start date. Marketing start date is the date that this product is on the market. Okay, so I'm going to select October 2nd. Okay, next is marketing category. Okay, marketing category is what you're authorized for marketing this drugs. Okay, so let's say I submit an OTC for this product. So I'm going to select OTC monograph not final. Okay, and then you have to provide a citation number. So, all right. Okay, moving on to the next section. It is ingredient. Okay, so in the red box, select add ingredient. Here you can add all the ingredients that associate with this drug. Okay, so please pay attention, um, closely pay attention to this section. Okay, you notice that the denominator is the first field here, and the strength come after. It's a little bit backward. Okay, so let's say my strength is 70 milliliter. And then my total is going to be 100 milliliter. And then the type is going to be, you can see there are several options here. Okay. Um, you might need to get some help from your scientist or pharmacist that who have a little bit of chemist background to figure this out if you're not sure. Okay. So for this one, it's going to be active ingredient. Ingredient is based on strength. Okay. And then my active moiety is going to be the same. I actually, hold on, let me see what's the ingredient you need name is going to be alcohol. I know it's going to be a lot, so you just have to pick the one that for your product. So which one do I want here? Uh, I don't know. I'm just going to pick either one here, okay? And then my active moiety is going to be the same. Not all active moiety are the same, so just keep that in mind. Um, Now that I have filled out everything, I'm going to say the ingredient. Now that you can see the alcohol has been added at one of the ingredients. So if you have multiple ingredients, you just follow the same process and add all the ingredients. The next section is a product image. My product is hand sanitizer, so it's not applied to this. So I'm just going to leave it blank. But normally, if you have a solid raw or dosage form, you will have you can upload the image file here. For characteristics, uh, I'm gonna add a color to my sanitizer. The value is gonna be green. So I want to point out something for you here. So if you have a solid form, like tablet, oral, you're gonna have to fill out the color, the safe, the score, the size. Okay. If you don't, you will fail the validation. So keep that in mind. Okay. Now I'm gonna say. Now I have my characteristic color added. Okay, now moving on to the packaging section. So you can have more than one packet size. Um, so for that reason, you have to provide a packet NDC. Okay. And for this one, the packet type is going to be, let's say, bottle. And for quantity, I'm just going to say 49. You need a measure, it's going to be ml. And you have to provide if this is a combination product or not. So this is not a combination product, so it's going to be type 0. Marketing status have to be active. Marketing start date is pre-populated, but you can change. Obviously, not all the packets I have the same marketing start date. So, so now that I have filled out everything, I'm gonna save the packet. Turn. Okay. So the last part of direct listing is include the content of label. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no way to add the content as a single PDF. Okay. Um, you have to add it by each section. I mean, you can just follow the packaging listing that you have and add it section by section. Okay. So I'm going to show you how to add two sections. One is the warning section, and then the other one is packet label principal display panel. In that section, you're going to have to provide a labeling, like an image file, okay? So to add a section, you're going to select add section, and then in the drop down, I'm going to select warning, and the effective date had to be the same as the marketing start date or after. It cannot be before, okay? So that, and then this is where the text will go. And then when you're done, hit save. Now one section is added. Now I'm going to do the packet label principal display panel section. Effective day again, October 2nd. Um, so you can choose the file of your image that you would like to upload, okay, from here. So I have one that I want to show, and then select upload. Now my file is uploaded. Next, you want to put your cursor here and then click on insert an image. So this is where to put the image file to the section. And then just come up with name, test, hit OK. Now I have inserted the image file. And then don't forget, you have to hit save section. Now they have two sections added. You can also view it's here. There you go. So as I had mentioned before, you can continue to fill the content of labeling section by section until you're done, okay? When you finish, just hit the return button. It will take you back to the previous section. In this section, you have three options. First, submit SPL, which I don't recommend yet, and then save as a draft or save and validate. You want to do save and validate first before submit your SPL. The reason for that is the save and validate will check to see if you have any error. And if you do, you can go to that error and look at it and see what it is and fix it. Now, if you come back and the status is ready for submit, then you can go ahead and submit the SBL. So I'm just gonna hit save and validate. Okay, you see I got all kind of error here. So if you got an error, you just go to arrow, and it'll tell you what it is, and then you just go in there, and then they'll tell you what the error is. Okay. Um, so yeah, so this is conclude the live demonstration portion for this listing. In a summary, drug listing is important in many aspects. Listing allow FDA to maintain an inventory of all drugs commercially distributed in the U.S. And this information is used by the public and other institutions. It is important to have a standard operation procedure or system in place to verify the accuracy of the listing at least twice a year. One of our drug priorities as a group is to have a complete and accurate data, and we need your help to obtain that information. Next, I would like to go over some do and don't related to the drug listing. Restaurant must list all drugs they manufacture. Please check listing at a minimum every June and December for accuracy. Private label distributor or PLD may list their own drug, but make sure to use your own label code when listing your products. Include the complete supply chains under establishments. Also, inactive ingredients are now required in drug listing, but it can be marked as confidential. Please do not submit drug listing for non-drug with CDER. Also, don't make assumptions. Make sure you have a complete, accurate information on the drug before submit your drug listing. Don't omit data to pass automatic validations. Also, don't include multiple email addresses when you request for assistance. It will only delay your request. Here are some helpful links for your information: listing instruction, strength conversion, OTC active ingredient, federal regulation, and our email address. Challenge question number 1, true or false? A product listing can be listed without labeler code. You have 3 seconds to answer. If your answer is false, you are correct. Challenge question number 2, true or false? You are not required to provide supplement information in product listing. You have 3 seconds to answer. If your answer is false, you are correct. And this concludes my portion of presentation. Thank you. Hello, once again, I am Troy Koo. In this brief presentation was developed in collaboration with FDA Office of Combination Products. To that end, in brief, the goal of this presentation is to help registrants submit accurate and compliant listing and can facilitate engagement with FDA. Combination products are a separate legal category of medical products. In 21st Century Cure Act, created duty to identify combination product when seeking an FDA action. And that identification can be accomplished at the packet level within the drug listing. What are the combination products? Well, there are 2 or more types of medical product combined together. It can include a drug and device, a biologic and device, and a drug and biologic, or even a drug device and biologic. Now, these combination products can be divided into 3 categories. A single entity combination product are chemically or physically combined, like a P-fuel injector field IV bag or Trenamo system. A co-packet combination product are product in the same packet, like a first aid kit, a surgical kit, or even a toothbrush boxes with a toothpaste. Cross-labeling combination products are certain but separately distributed products for combined use, expressly related to each other through the label. Now it's important to remind you that combination products are distinct legal categories from the drug device and the biological products. So how can you tell if your product is a combination product? Well, you can visit the Office of Combination Product webpage, for example, of the definition of the different types. Factors to consider for whether your product qualifies as a combination product can include whether there's a components to the product that assist delivery or application. Is there an implant that holds the drugs? Are there associated electronics and or software? Are there moving part or specialized connectors? Is there anything that include in the packet that could sold separately as a device? Maybe there's information in the labeling or the product description that specifically refers to the device type or name. Maybe there's both drug and biologic in the product, for example, in the antibiotic drug conjugate. So it should be clear for recently approved NDA and ANDA. A sponsor must identify the combination product on the 356H. But if it is unclear, and particularly for the older approved products, or the product not subject to pre-market approval, feel free to contact the Office of Combination Product at combination@fda.gov. For the purpose of registration and listing, the co-packet product are considered kit. A kit can be a combination product. A co-packet product consists at least one drug or biologic and one medical device, or of at least one drug and biologic in the same packet. Not all kits are combination products. A co-packet product consists only of multiple drugs, or at least one drug part co-packaged with a cosmetic or medical food. Not all combination products are kit. A single entity and cross-label combination product are not. When listing a combination product, identify the product as a combination product in the listing and provide information on all constituent parts, include device constituent parts. A single entity and a co-package must be listed with the lead center, CDER, CBER, or CDRH. Cross-label must be listed with the lead center if constituent parts are approved under a single application. If constituent parts are separately authorized, they must be listed with the authorizing center. Lead center is a center that authorizes the marketing of the products. Here's a screenshot from the SBL website showing all the available SBL acceptable terms for combination product codes. Next, in this quick live demonstration, I will show you how to designate the product in the packet data entry. The steps are the same as if you're doing your normal listing, so I will not spend too much time on this. Okay, so product listing and certification, create new, and then you pick the document type, and then hit continue. You have to fill out all the requirement field in here. So I'm gonna bypass that and go to add products. So under dosage form, you wanna select kit, okay? The reason for that is it will give you the option to add your component here, okay? So let's do the drug component first. So to do that, you click on add part. And again, you will have to fill out all the requirement field in here. Okay. It's going to say drugs. And then it depends on, the type, the product you're listing. You might have to fill out some of these, or you might not. So, and then under the packaging section, so this is where you would designate if it's a combination product or not. So under the combination product type, by default, type 0 is not a combination product. So you will have to select the option that fit your listing, okay? And then when you're done, just hit Save Packet. And then once you've done filling out everything in here, you can go ahead and save your part. Now that you have the drug component complete. Next, let's add a device, okay? So the only thing that you need to do in here is under marketing category. Again, it depends on what type of drug that you are listing. So I'm just going to do the exempt device, and then you have to provide the product classification. So you have to pick the option that will fit your listing, okay? And then once you're done, go ahead and hit save. Let me see here. I'm going to say device. Save part. Now I have a drug component and the device complete. So once you're done with everything, go ahead and save the product. And then if you're ready to submit, you can hit save validate, which will check the error, or you can go ahead and do the submit SBL. And that's it. Next is a challenge question. When identifying a combination product in drug listing, what is type 0? A, not a combination product. B, a convenient kit of co-packet. C, a pre-filled drug delivery device or system. D, a pre-filled biologic delivery device or system. I will give you 3 seconds. If your answer is A, not a combination product, you are correct. This concludes my combination product presentation. I hope you found this presentation helpful. If you have any questions, you can email us at eDRLS@fda.hhs.gov. Thank you.
Good morning. As you are learning to submit listing SBLs to FDA using CDER Direct, it is important to talk about strength conversion in drug listing, which is the source of many issues and incorrect data submission in the SBL. And in fact, we have a session later this afternoon, which is a case study that focuses on this topic. After this presentation, you should be able to describe strength conversion in drug listing, provide dosage form examples of strength conversion in listing SPLs, and list potential consequences of incorrect strength conversion in listing SPLs. Under Section 510 of the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act, registration and listing, including the submission of updated information, shall be submitted to the Secretary by electronic means. Under 21 CFR 207-61, all information submitted under this part must be transmitted to FDA in electronic format by using our electronic drug registration and listing system in a form that we can process, review, and archive. An electronic format requires standardization and compatibility, in this case, compatibility with the SBL format. This applies to many of the required data in your submission, such as dosage form, route of administration, strength, unit of measure, active ingredient, and moiety, and labeling sections. The United States Pharmacopoeia has issued standards for expressing the strength for drugs and for biological products. In order to align with USB standards and FDA guidance documents and standardize the expression of active ingredients in drug SPLs, we have adopted a series of automated validation rules to allow for certain expressions. Strength of an active ingredient has to be included as a fraction or ratio, including a numerator and a denominator, regardless of the drug's dosage form. The listed active ingredient strength in SPL should align with the labeling, where the numerator reflects the weight or volume of the active ingredient and the denominator reflects the weight or volume of the drug base or the time. An example of weight is milligram, an example of volume is milliliter, and an example of time is hour, and an example of each is tablet. The fields in CDER Direct include a numerator, which is the strength of the product, and the numerator unit, which should be the weight or volume unit of measure, the denominator strength, which is the weight or volume of drug base or time, and the denominator unit, which is the unit of measure for denominator strength, usually weight, volume, or time unit of measure, or each in the case of oral solid dosage forms. For an oral solid dosage form, as you can see in this example, the strength is included as the numerator with its unit of measure. So in this example, you will see that the numerator is included as 500 milligram of acetaminophen, and the unit of measure is expressed as milligram. Then you will have to include a denominator and its unit of measure. So in this case, because you are dealing with one tablet, the denominator's strength is 1 and the unit of measure is 1. For some other dosage forms, the strength of active ingredient is allowed to be expressed in percentage in labeling. Percentage cannot be included in an SPL format and must be converted into ratios. These ratios include weight per weight, weight per volume, volume per volume, or weight per time, and must include a value in the numerator and in the denominator, including the correct units of measure in order to pass the validation rules. While most dosage forms follow a weight per weight or weight per volume conversion, some exceptions are alcohol, medical gases, and water. In cases like alcohol, the value of density can fluctuate depending on the temperature. Active ingredient strength for transdermal and vaginal system also should be expressed in weight per time. An incorrect conversion of these values will lead to an incorrect strength included in the listing SPL. Here are some examples of the different dosage forms and their appropriate numerator and denominator units. So for oral solid dosage form, as we mentioned, you want to include it in the SPL as a weight per each value. For oral liquids, you can choose and you should choose the weight per volume. For topical cream or ointments, weight per weight. Transdermal systems, weight per time. Swabs, cloth, sponges that include alcohol are volume per volume. One of the more complicated dosage forms is the injectable drugs. For injectable products that are solids intended to be constituted or reconstituted, the active ingredient strength in SPL should be listed as the amount per vial. For injectable products that are liquids, for example, solutions, suspensions, and emulsions, the active ingredient strength in SPL should be listed as the total amount per total volume. In example 1 on this slide, each vial contains 100 milligram of drug A lyophilized powder. In example 2, each vial contains 100 milligram of drug B in 20 ml of base or solution in the vial. In many of these submissions, if the strength data is entered incorrectly, no automated validation errors are generated, as there are no reference points which can be made to the labeling information. As I also mentioned previously, the strength data in SPL should align with strength in labeling, but depending on the dosage form, it doesn't always match 100%. If the data is entered incorrectly and an error message is not generated, the errors are later detected through our manual surveillance projects and a data compliance case is created. If not corrected by the firms, an error in the listing data submitted to the FDA can result in the removal of the incorrect data by FDA from public listing sites, as well as possible further actions such as untitled letters or warning letters. Using options A, B, C, or D, please take a few seconds to answer challenge question number 1. Which statement is correct? A, SPL automated validations detect any strength conversion error. Strength in SPL should always match strength in labeling. Strength in SPL should always align with strength in labeling. Or D, as long as the listing SPL is submitted and accepted by FDA, the strength calculation is done correctly. And as many of you answered, the answer is C. The strength in SPL should always align with strength in labeling. For challenge question number 2, answer this question: which dosage forms can be expressed in weight per volume in a listing SPL? Topical gels, medical gases, inhalation powder, for example, a dry powder inhaler, or ophthalmic solutions or suspensions. The correct answer would be D. So for topical gels, they are converted to a weight by weight volume. Medical gases, similar to alcohol, as I mentioned previously, are expressed in volume per volume. And inhalations can be different. An inhalation powder should be expressed in weight per each, like the example here. But an inhalation liquid that is not non-metered, for example, inhalation solution in an ampule or vial, is expressed in weight per volume. Here's a link of some of the resources that you can use to learn more about strength conversion. We have a page on our compliance, eDRLS compliance page that talks about strength conversion in drug listing, and there are several other resources that can be useful in your submissions. Thanks for your attention. I now invite you to listen to the rest of this session about listing updates and no change certification.
Good morning. My name is Yogesh Paruthi, and I'm a Consumer Safety Officer in the Drug Registration and Listing Branch within OUDLC at FDA. Today, I want to talk about listing updates and delisting. In my presentation today, we will go over who must update drug listings and when, what information must be submitted when updating drug listing information, who must delist a product and when, how to delist and update drug listing information using CDER Direct. And we will finish our presentation with the challenge question. After participating in this session, attendees should be able to describe the drug listings requirements. They should be able to identify who needs to update drug listings and when. They should also be able to identify who needs to delist and when. So who must update drug listings and when? Under 21 CFR 207.57b, each registrant must review and update their drug listing information no later than June and December of each year. Also, under 21 CFR 207.57c, registrants are encouraged to update listing information at the time of any change affecting information previously submitted. What information must be submitted when updating drug listing information? Under 21 CFR 207.57, each registrant must provide drug listing information for any drug manufactured, repacked, relabeled, or salvaged that has not been previously submitted. They should also submit the date and establishment discontinued the manufacturing, repacking, labeling, or salvaging of a listed drug and provide the expiration date of the last lot, manufactured, repacked, relabeled, or salvaged. They should also submit any material changes to any information previously submitted. They should also submit the date and establishment, resume the manufacturing, repacking, or relabeling a drug previously discontinued. Now, who must delist a product and when? Under 21 CFR 207.57 B2, each registrant must delist their products when the product is no longer in U.S. commercial distribution. For any foreign manufacturers, importation is commercial distribution. They should do that by submitting the drug's marketing end date. This date should be the expiration date of the last lot manufactured or distributed. Now, in this presentation, we will go over a live demo that will show us how to delist and update drug listing information using CDER Direct. Please note, for this live demonstration, I will use a pre-production environment and not a live environment. So some of the features may look a little different. Now, to start this live demo, we will log into our CDER Direct account. Once you are logged into CDER Direct, please select Product Listing and Certification from the submission type. This will open a new window containing all your listing. Now, please select the most recent submission accepted SPL of the product that you would like to either delist or update. Once you have identified the SPL, simply click on it and select Create New Version. This will open a new window, and in my demonstration today, we will use this draft. This has all the information related to your product listing. It has document type, set ID, root ID, effective date. It also has information about your labeler and the establishment and the products. Now, you would simply click on this pencil icon, and this will give you all the details about your product. NDC, dosage form, any DEA schedule if it's a control. Now, to delist your product, you would simply drop down and select this option as completed. And you can enter a date of your choice that you would like to delist the product, and simply click on Save and submit the SPL. From here, you can also update your listing information. If you're adding any ingredients, or if you're removing any ingredients from here, or if you're adding any sort of packaging or removing any additional packaging from your listing. Or you could also change the establishment from here. You would simply click on Save and then submit your SPL. Now that we have reviewed the listing updates and delisting requirements, let's see what we remember from today's presentation. Challenge question. How often must a registrant review and update their drug listing information? A, once a year, B, every month, C, never, or D, June and December each year. If you guessed June and December each year, you are correct. I hope this section helped review drug listing and delisting requirements. Questions will be answered in our live Q&A segment at the end of this session. And to contact the Drug Registration and Listing Branch, please send us an email at eDRLS@fda.hhs.gov. Thank you.
I'd like to thank my colleague for his presentation. My name is Vikas Arora, and I'm a Consumer Safety Officer with the Drug Registration and Listing Branch. And today I'm going to go over Blanket No Change Certification. Here are the learning objectives for this presentation. We're going to describe the listing certification requirements. We're going to identify who needs to certify. and then we're going to go into a brief demonstration in CDER Direct. So what are the listing certification requirements? Each drug not initially listed or updated during the calendar year must be updated or certified that the data has not changed since the last update. This can be done with a blanket no change certification SPL. This is available during the annual drug listing certification window, which is from October 1st to December 31st each year. Blanket no change certification SPLs will only be accepted during this time period. Outside of that annual certification window, an update of the drug listing SPL submission for each NDC is required for certification. For those drug listings that have received an updated SPL during the current calendar year, they are considered up to date and do not require a blanket no change certification. At the end of the annual certification window, drug listings that have not been certified will be considered expired and may be inactivated and removed from the NDC directory and subsequently DailyMed. The only way to restore these listings is to submit an updated full product listing SPL using the same set ID. So who needs to certify? Certification of drug listings is the responsibility of all registered establishments. That being said, they may have authorized agents that can submit SPLs on their behalf. This includes private label distributors, vendors, and U.S. agents. So now I'm going to go into a brief demonstration of blanket no change certification in CDER Direct.
In order to begin the blanket no change certification process, you're first going to log into your CDER Direct account. Then on the left-hand side under Submissions, you're going to find the Product Listing and Certification tab. You're going to click on that. Once that appears on the right side, you're going to click on Create New Upload File. Here you're going to see two radio buttons appear. You're going to click on Create a New Product Listing or Certification using a blank form. Below, you're going to see the different SPL document types populate. You're going to click the drop-down and click on Blanket No Change Certification of Product Listing and click on Continue. Please see this note in red up top, indicating that this blanket no change certification is only intended to certify drug listings only. It does not affect the establishment registration nor renew the establishment registration. The first section is the header section, and it's automatically populated with the set ID, the root ID, the version number, and the effective date. You scroll down to the next section, the authorized agent details. Here is general information you can add about the agent. If you ever need more detail about what each section is looking for, you can click on the underlined heading and a pop-up box will appear with an explanation. In this case, the information is the same as the CDER account details. If that's true, you can click this checkbox here and the information will automatically populate. Otherwise, you may enter the information manually if the information is different. Next, we come down to the labeler section. You click on Add Labeler and enter in the labeler code of the company whose product you want to certify. So in this case, I'm going to add in a labeler code for 55555. Click Add. The labeler code and the associated information will now appear here. And with that, we will also see the establishment information below. We see this here because my product listing file associated with this labeler code has this establishment listed in the establishment section of the product listing. If this establishment was marked as confidential, this would not appear here unless the establishment was listed as part of the listing created from your own CDER Direct account. If that product listing was not created via your own CDER Direct account, then you would have to manually add in the establishment because it will not appear. In that case, you click on Add Establishment here, and you would add in the establishment DUNS of the firm's drug products you would want to certify. In this case, our establishment appears. Okay. Then when looking to see the populated drugs, sometimes users immediately click on Show Products. And when they do that, they do not see any drug listings, and they contact us saying that the form is not working and why none of their products are appearing. What you have to do is to go back, scroll down here, you have to click on the establishment associated with the labeler, and then click Show Products. Then you will see all the products associated with that establishment. Here you will see all the products listed by NDC. We can see here that we can click on some checkboxes and not others. This is due to the status of these NDCs. All the different possibilities for the status are listed up top and defined, so please make sure to read these carefully. If the status is uncertified, it has a check mark and it's available to be certified for the next calendar year. As you can see here, the NDC with the product code 333 does not have a check mark available. In this case, the status is inactivated, which means that the listing data has been inactivated by the FDA and cannot be certified through a blanket no change certification request. In this case, an updated SPL must be manually provided for that specific NDC to update the status to current. After that is submitted and accepted, a blanket no change certification is no longer needed for that NDC because it will now be certified and current. Another common status that comes up is validation errors. As the definition states, the SPL file does not conform to the current validation procedures. In this case, a new SPL will need to be submitted to address those validation errors. Once that SPL is submitted and accepted, similarly, a blanket no change certification request is no longer needed for that specific NDC because it will now be certified and current. If any of the statuses here appear as current, there will also be no checkboxes here because the listing was revised, submitted, and certified during the current calendar year, not requiring an additional blanket no change certification during the annual certification period. So now I'm going to click on this box here to click on all the available checkboxes. And once they're checked, I'm going to click on Save and Update. When I scroll down, all the products now appear under products included in submission down below. Then you scroll up, you're going to click on Save and Validate to save your updated SPL as well as to make sure all your validations have passed. Then you're going to click on Submit SPL. And that's it. Once the submission has been accepted on this home landing page, you are done certifying your products.
Now we're going to go over a few challenge questions. So challenge question number 1, true or false? Blanket no change certifications can be completed at any time of year. And this is, of course, false. Blanket no change certifications can only be completed during the annual certification period from October 1st to December 31st each year. Challenge question number 2, true or false? Private label distributors can act as authorized agents on behalf of the establishment for a PLD's drug listing and certification requirements. And this is, of course, true. So in summary, during the calendar year, drug listings must be updated via a new SPL submission or certified through a blanket no change certification, certifying that the data has not changed since the last update. If the annual certification window has passed, a new SPL submission is required in order to certify a listing. Please keep your drug listings current. Thank you all for your attention, and now I'd like to pass the presentation to my colleague.
Thanks for all the great presentations. Moving into our final presentation before the first Q&A panel, we'll learn about 503B registration and product reporting using CDER Direct. Our presenter is Huascar Batista, Senior Advisor, Office of Compounding Quality and Compliance, Office of Compliance, CDER. Please join me to welcome Huascar Batista.
Hello, we will go over the CDER Direct submission for your registration and human compounded drug label. First, you will click on Establishment Registration at the first screen. Note, in the top left, you have the Home button. That will usually tell you where you are on the menu level. You will need to create a new or upload a file. We will be creating a new submission for establishment registration. You will click on the radio button to create a new establishment registration and then continue. You will insert all the registrant details, including registrant name and DUNS number and contact information. That information will be pre-populated in the future in other screens. When you select Add Establishment, it will likely ask you to make sure that you select the document type. In this case, it will be Establishment Registration. Then you will be able to provide business operation and their qualifiers. If you select under the establishment contact details, same as registrant contact details as the establishment details, the business operation will become not available, and then you can add a business operation to select your qualifiers. In this case, it will be Human Drug Compounding Outsourcing Facility with an intent to compound drug shortage drugs, compounding from bulk ingredients, and compounding sterile products. Then you should be able to save the establishment information. When you see the squiggly line in the center of the screen, that means that the screen will be much longer than this screen permits, and it is abbreviated for the purpose of the presentation. Now you can click on Save and Validate once you have the establishment registration document type and attempt to submit the SPL. Clicking on Saving and Validate does not necessarily submit the SPL for you. You can save it as a draft if you intend to submit it later, but saving and validating is a good idea to see if any information will not pass validation. Notice at the center bottom of the screen, the establishment FEI information is blank. If you need an FEI and you do not have one, you may contact your FDA local district office and they can help you. When the SPL has been submitted, you will return to this screen, and this screen is showing you in orange that it has been submitted and it is pending validation. The status will be validation in progress. You will not have a submission ID. You will see that submission ID once the validation is successful. Once the registration is successful, you should be able to now select product listing and certification. Click on product listing and certification and you will be able to create a new report. You will then click on the radio button for Create a New Product Listing or Certification. Remember that the dashed underline means that you can get additional information if you click on that term, and the red asterisks mean that it is a mandatory field. So you must select a document type, an SPL document type. In this case, it will be human compounded drug label before you can select Continue. At any point in time, you can save a draft of what you're working on. In this case, you first need to select a reporting period before you can click on Saving as a Draft. The reporting period currently will be one of the selections available in the pull-down menu. Now you will need to enter labeler details. You can then add an establishment. And if you have products to report, you can select Yes, where it asks, do you have any products to report? When you are entering the establishment details, the business operation is defaulted to Human Drug Compounding Outsourcing Facility. You've entered your establishment name and DUNS number, and then you can save the establishment and be returned to the prior screen to add products. Now we can start adding the products one by one. In this case, we will add one product. You click on Add Product. Remember, anything with a red asterisk is required. Anything without is not required, but recommended, especially when it comes to the NDC product code. You may enter your assigned compounded drug NDC product code. Enter a proprietary name. You may also enter the non-proprietary name. It will be required. You will need to select a dosage from a pull-down menu. Then you will need to select a route of administration and move it from the left box into the right box. In this case, it will be an injection for perineural administration. You will then also be required to select the marketing category. There are currently two marketing categories available. One is for the products that you do distribute, and one is for the products that you do not distribute or do not market. In this case, we'll be selecting the product that we do distribute, outsourcing facility compounded human drug product, parentheses exempt from approval requirements. Now we're ready to add an ingredient. Here there are quite a few information needed. Your denominator strength, the unit of measure, the type of active ingredient that you will be using, the ingredient name. For the ingredient uni name, you can start to type the name of the ingredient and you will be provided with a list to select from. If you have the Unicode, you can also type that. The strength of the ingredient and its unit of measure. You will also need to select an active moiety unless it is the same as the ingredient. The reference ingredient becomes available when you select the type where the reference ingredient is the basis for strength. You can also then enter your source NDC code for the bulk drug substance. Here are some helpful hints. You may also add inactive ingredients as well as ingredients that are drugs and that you are using as an active ingredient that is sourced from a dietary supplement. It is still considered an active drug ingredient when you use it in the compounded drug. Now you are, for example, going to select an ingredient that is a dietary supplement. This is an alternative to the active ingredient, which is not normally considered also a dietary supplement. In this case, you can start entering the name or the Unicode. We'll be selecting cyanocobalamin. You may enter strength and you may enter units of measure, although they will not be required. If you have source NDC manufacturer details for this dietary supplement ingredient that is being used as an active ingredient in your drug, you may enter it with the source NDC, manufacturer DUNS, or manufacturer name. If you don't have that information, you will have the option to check off that you do not have that information. Now that we have the active ingredient, we can add package information. An NDC code can point you to many different types of products. Each strength is a different NDC. And when you create a product, you can save it and return to the main screen to add other products that use the same ingredient but have different strength and formulation. Now we can add a single level package. You may assign a package NDC. We will need the package type, the quantity, the unit of measure, and how many individual units were made with this particular presentation. You can then click on an outer package, adding an outer package when there is multi-level packaging. We will show that next. When you add an outer level package, the first level that you entered will become innermost, and you are now adding an outermost level. You will provide your designated package NDC, the package type used. Normally, the outermost package quantity should be 1. The unit of measure is the unit of measure that you're using for all the products. And then you can say how many units of individual products were produced. So in this case, it would be the total number of syringes that you are reporting for that period. You can, now that the information was submitted, you can save and validate or save as a draft. Again, saving and validating does not submit your SPL. You must click on Submit SPL in order for the saved product to be submitted for validation and for any feedback that we may have. Once it has been submitted, you will have a submission ID. Once the validation has completed, when the validation is pending, the status will say validation in progress. If the status validation failure shows up, then you will need to correct the errors and resubmit the SPL. You can find information about active moiety names and their associated unis at the green link. And you can also find corresponding information of active moieties to listed active ingredient. You can download that file by clicking on the purple link. Now you would be ready to submit content of labeling. That is a compounded product label that you may be affixing to your product. You can create one using the editor. Once you save the section, you can upload an image. JPEG files only, please. Once you upload it, it will become available, and you can then click on this icon that has a little picture To upload an image into the content of labeling, the pop-up window will request a name from the images uploaded below and the accompanying text. When you successfully insert an image, the referenced "No" will turn to "Yes". That means the image has been accepted. You will need to select the type of section and the effective date for that labeling, and then click on Apply to save the content of labeling before you return to the main screen. Otherwise, it will not be saved. Once you have submitted all the content of labeling information, you may save it as a draft, and then you can safely submit the SPL by clicking on the Submit SPL button. Where do we get more information? You can log on to CDER Direct at direct.fda.gov. Make sure you're using a compatible browser. You can obtain help at cederdirect@fda.hhs.gov or by contacting the compounding desk at compounding@fda.hhs.gov. Thank you.
Thank you all for the wonderful presentations and demonstrations. We'll now enter our first Q&A panel. As a reminder, if you haven't had a chance to enter your questions into the Q&A chat pod, please do so now. We'll answer as many questions as time allows. As a special note, we cannot address company-specific questions and try to cover as many general questions as we can. Specific cases can be sent to our general mailbox for assistance, and that email address is eDRLS@fda.hhs.gov. Please be patient with us in receiving a response from FDA because typically after the workshop there is an influx of inquiries coming into our mailbox. The Drug Registration and Listing Branch will do its best to provide a response in a timely manner. Looks like we have some questions coming in right now. The first group of questions will be directed to Reggie Samuel. And here is the first question for Reggie Samuel. Are drug excipient manufacturers required to register with FDA?
To the CFR, CFR 207.13. Our exemptions are mentioned in CFR 207.13, and there it does state that manufacturers, repackers, and relabelers of harmless inactive ingredients such as excipients, colorings, flavorings, emulsifiers, lubricants, preservatives, or solvents that become components of drugs are exempted from registration and listing requirements. Again, that's in 21 CFR 207.13.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question for Reggie Samuel is the following. Will the use of pragmatic structured product labeling editor followed by the submission via the ESG still be possible, or should we transition to CDER Direct? And if yes, what would be the implementation date?
So CDER Direct is basically an alternative to being able to use X Forms, which then uses ESG to submit the SPL. So if you're choosing to use CDER Direct and previously you had used X Forms or some other SPL authoring tool in order to create your SPLs, you can import those accepted created SPLs into CDER Direct and simply start using CDER Direct beginning today by importing those SPLs into CDER Direct. If you had a third party that was submitting your SPLs on your behalf previously, you can get those particular SPLs from your third party consultant and transfer them, import them into CDER Direct and begin using CDER Direct to manage your SPL submissions yourself in CDER Direct. So once again, you can choose to either use CDER Direct or you can continue to use another authoring tool, but CDER Direct is one of those options which you find to be many people find user friendly.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is, what if the establishment has two buildings in close proximity, but two different street addresses? How do we handle that?
Great question. So what ends up happening is if you have, since any establishments that is going to be registered has to have a DUNS number, you would first go to Dun and Bradstreet, and they will then determine what the DUNS numbers are going to be for that particular establishment location. Generally, if there's two different addresses, you will get two different DUNS numbers, but that's going to be determined by Dun and Bradstreet. When you then register as an establishment with those DUNS numbers, the FEI, or the Facility Establishment Identifier, that will be assigned by the FDA District Monitor, they will determine whether that particular those buildings that are very in close proximity will have the same FEI number or a different FEI number for inspection purposes. But you would be notified of what that FEI would be. So you could have two different DUNS numbers for those locations, yet be under one FEI number. But again, that DUNS number is going to be determined by Dun and Bradstreet, and the FEI by the FDA District Monitor.
Thank you for responding to that question. You have just a couple more in this round, and here's the next question. There are several DUNS lookup tools that don't always match each other. Which one is the correct lookup tool to ensure that the establishment registration does not fail validation?
Yeah, so when it comes to your Dun and Bradstreet information with the FDA, the website you're going to want to access if you want to make an update to your DUNS number, or you want to check what information is there in the Dun and Bradstreet database, is importregistration.dnb.com. That's importregistration.dnb.com. There you'll be able to sign up and enter an email address and be able to then make changes to your DUNS number or see what's there and communicate with Dun and Bradstreet regarding your DUNS information. One thing I did want to note, I know I saw a question I want to cover, is that when in CDER Direct, when you click on Submit SPL, it also does do the validation process as well. It'll validate it and submit it. And if it has any errors, when you submit it, it will then tell you what those errors are, similar to clicking on Save and Validate. So Save and Validate just saves the draft in your CDER Direct account and then validates it and tells you what errors are there. Submit SPL will do those same exact things, but also try to submit to FDA. So if it did pass validation, it would get through directly to our system. I want to make that clarification. I saw a lot of questions come in regarding that.
Thank you for responding to that question. One last question in this round for Reggie Samuel, and here is the question. If a company has been managing submissions through the ESG, can listing info be imported or accessed through CDER Direct, or would a new submission from scratch have to be generated to start managing through this system instead?
So the great news for you, whoever had asked that question, and those that are wondering, is that no, you don't have to start from scratch. If you obtain that SPL document, that already created SPL document, you can import it into CDER Direct by, when you access it, you go to Create New /Upload File, and then click on the radio button for Import an existing SPL document. And then it would allow you to then simply update the information in that SPL and submit it by pre-populating the fields for you that have already been submitted in the prior submission. So you can get started today if you have the SPL document. For some establishment registrations, if you don't have the previous document and you want to start managing that SPL on your own via your own CDER Direct account, you can send us an email and we can provide that SPL document for you so you can start managing it on your own.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist, we have a few questions that came in for Lieutenant Commander Sujin Park, and here's the first question for Commander Park. Our CDER Direct homepage does not have the NDC labeler code request section in the submission section. How do we deal with this?
Okay, so if you are missing the NDC labeler code request option, you would need to log into your CDER Direct, and then you go to the under management account, go to edit user profile. From there, you can scroll down to form access. It's all the way on the bottom, and make sure you check off NDC labeler code request option. Then click the submit button, and you should have access to that SPL for submission.
Thank you for responding to that question. We've got a couple more questions for Commander Park, and here's the next question. How do you make a change in company name from CO to LLC?
Okay, great question. So in order to make actually any changes to your initial labeler code request submission, once again, you log into your CDER Direct account and you would need to open the accepted labeler code request SPL submission. And once you have access to that SPL, first thing you must do is create new version. Then you can make changes as needed, whether it's changing the name of the company or the contact details, and then you can submit that SPL.
Thank you for responding to that question. Just a couple more questions in this round for Commander Park, and here's the next question. If a firm distributes both prescription and non-prescription drugs, should they request two separate labeler codes?
Answer is no. Regardless of different types of drugs manufactured or distributed by a firm, you should not request for more than one labeler code. However, a company may have more than one labeler code assigned in the case of mergers and acquisitions, or if a company actually runs out of all available product codes assigned under that labeler code.
And our final question this round for Commander Park is the following. Can a U.S. agent apply for a labeler code on behalf of a foreign company?
Yes, a U.S. agent can apply for a labeler code on behalf of a foreign company. Labeler code requests SPL can be submitted by really anyone. So it's more of a business decision. If a foreign entity has an agreement with its U.S. agent to do the submission on their behalf, then that is completely acceptable. Thank you.
Thank you for responding for that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist. A few questions came in from Laurie Simons, and here is the first question. Will FDA ask for a copy of the label or other information before assigning the labeler code?
That's a great question. The FDA would ask for any information in reference to your labeler code request that might assist us in determining if you should be assigned a labeler code or not. So that's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. Got a few more questions for Laurie Simons, and here's the next question. Please confirm a parent company can use the same labeler code for subsidiaries. Is this correct thinking?
Yes, so the same labeler code can be used for multiple sites if they're under one company, like the parent, a subsidiary, or another affiliate. Just remember that the labeler is usually for the company that owns the brand and most likely associated with the code. And I think this was mentioned earlier as well, but if the company has multiple sites, then yes, each site has its own DUNS and FEI number, as we know, but they can operate under the same labeler code. So just as Reggie mentioned, the DUNS and FEI are site specific, and then the labeler codes are company specific. Great question. Thanks.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question is the following. For mergers and acquisitions, what is the expected timing to change NDCs and labeling under the decided labeler code?
So for this one, it sort of depends. Mergers and acquisitions can have their own unique circumstances. I know I had mentioned earlier in the presentation an example that if a labeler code can be acquired, or if only all the products are acquired, or if the previous labeler no longer uses that labeler code for its own drug listing, then the labeler code SPL has to be updated to reflect that new information, like the name and the address, within 30 days of the acquisition. Then, of course, the drug listing files must also be updated with the new labeler name and labeling information. Excuse me, labeler information. So that piece actually falls under the required listing updates every June and December. So hopefully that clears things up. Thanks.
Thank you for responding. And one final question for Laurie Simons in this round. How do I know when to apply for a labeler code? I do apologize. I'm not able to hear you, Laurie Simons. So we're going to go on to the next panelist and have our tech team check in with you. And we do have a few questions coming in for Pui Huber. And here's the first question for Pui. Is it still possible to submit drug listings, establishment registrations via the gateway?
Hello, hi. Yes, that's a great question. Yes, it certainly is. If you are using any tools outside of CDER Direct to create your SPL for both registration and listing, you have to submit it through the gateway. But if there are any errors or help with your gateway or ESG account, you will have to email the ESG help desk, which is esghelpdesk@fda.hhs.gov.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have a couple more questions for Pui Huber, and here is the next question. If I do not click on validate but directly on submission button, will the SPL file go through validation anyway and give me an error in case there are mistakes? And in that case, can I correct it and then submit again?
Yes, I think there were a lot of questions regarding the save and validate, as Reggie mentioned earlier. So if you decide to submit the SPL file without, opting to save and validate first, yes, the SPL will automatically, go through the validation. And if there are any errors or discrepancies with your SPL, there will be an email notification submitted to you to let you know your submission did not pass validation. And also within your CDER Direct portal, you will find the status of your SPL will show that there's an error. And you can go back in, correct anything that needs to be corrected and then submit again. But from our advice is that, to minimize any delays or any issues, we suggest that you always use the save and validate option before you actually submit your SPL.
Thank you for responding to that question. We've got a couple more questions for Pui Huber. And here is the next question. What if I have to update the labeler code information, but I have no SPL because it's a very old request? It's in paper. What do I do?
Right, so anything that was in paper format, labeler code that was assigned in the paper format, you have to still submit the document type NDC labeler code request. Once you submit that to us, we suggest that you email us to let us know that you are looking to get the original labeler code, so we can ensure that the original paper assigned labeler code is assigned to you. So the process is the same. Submit a labeler code request file, and please shoot us an email to make sure that the paper assigned code gets to you.
Thank you for responding to that question. I have one more question this round for our Huber, and here is the next question. There are only two submission options in the new labeler code request submission: that the new labeler code request and removing the labeler code. If the firm wants to change the U.S. agent, what submission type is required?
This is a very good question, because yes, there are only two document types associated with a labeler code request, which is NDC labeler code request and labeler code inactivation. So for any changes to update any specific details associated with your labeler code, address, email address, or the US agent, you will have to use the document type NDC labeler code request. And from there, you're going to access the last accepted labeler code request and make sure you select the option create new version. Until you do this, the labeler code field will not give you the ability to create any updates. So click on create new version. You will enter any changes, including the US agent information. And after, if everything looks good, you can just simply submit the SPL.
Thank you for
Thank
responding
you.
to that group of questions. And we're going to move on to our next panelist. We have a few questions that came in for Troy Koo, and here's the first question. Is an SPL for a label update the same as an SPL for the drug listing, or does it have to be separate?
The answer is absolutely not, because it's two separate SPL files. You will have to submit them individually for the update.
Thank you for responding to that question. I've got a few more questions for Troy Koo. Here's the next question. When and where can we include importer information in the drug listing SPL? Importer information, is it mandatory?
Good question. So this is a two-part question. So the first part is when and where to include import information. It have to be done in the established registration SPL. Okay, so the second part is import information is mandatory. You notice that the importer option only available if it's not manufactured in the US. Therefore, if you have a product that's coming in the US, you're going to want to provide information. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We've got one more question for Troy Koo in this round. And here's the question. Do you need a labeler code to list your product?
Absolutely. You're going to have a label code for any listing.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist, we have a few questions that came in for Leila Raju-Esfandari. And here is the first question. Does one need to register nutritional supplements?
So I believe by nutritional supplements, they mean something like a dietary supplement or medical food that are not considered drugs. Those products are under jurisdiction of CEFSAN, and if there are any registration of the listing requirements, I believe something might be coming up for dietary supplements that is under CEFSAN's jurisdiction. You do not register or list with CDER if your only manufacturing and distributing activity covers basically non-drug products such as medical food or dietary supplements. In fact, assigning an NDC to a non-drug product can make that product misbranded under 20777.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have a few more questions came in for Leila Raju Esfandiari, and here is the next question. Should we start generating 12 digits NDCs from October 23 for ANDA submissions?
No, please note that this 12-digit NDC format is still a proposed rule. So after it's finalized, and if that is the direction that we will all be going to, there will be an effective date that will be announced in the final rule. Please just stay tuned for a very good presentation later this afternoon on this topic.
Thank you for responding to that question. The next question for Leila Raju Esfandiari is the following. Can the MOCRA listing be done from the current CDER Direct account which we use for OTCs?
So that's a good question. It refers to MOCRA requirements for cosmetics, upcoming cosmetics registration and listing, which I believe in the past was voluntarily, but now it's mandatory coming soon. I'm not going to speak to compliance dates and the details of registration and listing requirements under MOCRA, but this gives me the opportunity to basically announce that CDER Direct will have a new look and will have a separate platform which is going to be called Cosmetics Direct, and will start accepting registration listing information for cosmetics product.
Thank you for responding to that question. I've got a couple more questions for Leila Raju Esfandiari, and this one deals with OTC products. And here's the question. The new requirement message, and it's referencing the message from FDA on the 14th of September to updating marketing category and application number fields for OTC monograph drugs. In other words, replacing OTC monograph final and OTC monograph not final with the single term OTC monograph drug. If the product was updated in 2023, when is it required to update the marketing category?
So another great question and very timely. This announcement was sent to all registrants in our database on September 14, as mentioned. With full disclosures that I'm not an OTC subject matter expert, and we're just handling the listing part of the changes coming up. The marketing categories that included OTC monograph final and not final, those two marketing categories are going to be retired starting October 1st, and a new marketing category that is OTC monograph drug is replacing those two. So there will be a new category, and then you need to include the new monograph IDs. Please refer to, instead of the CFR citations, those are all going away. So please refer to the details of that letter that was sent out on September 14. That includes a lot of good information and also some helpful links that you can use to find appropriate monograph IDs for your drug listings. I will also add that we had many questions, and I'm sorry we cannot answer each and every question here, but it is important to know because your listing certification period is starting. you are not required to update that data for your OTC drug listings when you use the certification option starting October 1st to December 31st. For any new or updated drug listing, your information will fail validation if you use the older marketing categories or CFR citations. But we want to enable you to take the time to update your systems and send us the information. Obviously, we request that that information is sent as soon as possible, but we are not requiring in this renewal period for you to update each and every OTC drug listing to include the new marketing category and monograph IDs.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have one more question in this round, and here's the question. For PDUFA products, is the marketing start date the PDUFA approval date?
So one thing to consider is that whether if it's PDUFA or GDUFA or any other approval mechanism for a drug, the approval is independent than marketing. So drug listing is starts with commercial distribution of your drug. So if your drug is approved and for some reason you delay marketing of the product for a number of weeks or months for business reasons, that is up to you. So from a drug listing requirement, you're not required to submit your drug listing with that start marketing date until you actually start marketing the product. We understand that there are requirements for labeling submission per your approval letter to submit approved labeling within 14 days in structured labeling format. And that is only done through your drug listing. So there is a little trick part here. In order for you to comply with both of those things, our recommendation is that you do submit your drug listing, including your approved labeling, within 14 days of approval per the approval letter, but then include a future start marketing date that corresponds to the date that you intend to start commercial distribution. If that date changes for any reason, then you can go ahead and update it. And the data will not be published until it reaches that start marketing date.
Thank you for responding to that group of questions. Moving on to our next panelist. Got a few questions that came in for Yogesh Paruthi. And here is the first question. Where do you submit the date you stopped manufacturing?
That is a great question. So you basically do not enter a date in which you stopped manufacturing per se. The date you enter in the marketing end date is the last lot expiration date. But it is helpful to the FDA that you submit that information as soon as you stop manufacturing or distributing, because your submission date can align with the date you stop manufacturing or distributing. It shows the FDA intent to discontinue a drug with a future marketing date. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. Got one more question here for Yogesh Paruthi. 1 second, I'm waiting on my document to reload while we get to that question. And here is the question. How often must a registrant review and update their drug listing information?
Thank you for this question. So information has to be updated every June and December of each year. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. Moving on to our next panelist. Got a few questions that came in from Vikas Arora. Vikas. And here is the first question. If we had a third party create our SPL for us and we submitted to OC through the ASG, does the third party have to list the blanket no changes, or can I do this through CDER Direct?
Thank you for that question. Yes, a third party can do the blanket no change certification, but you can also do the blanket no change certification through a different account in CDER Direct. But when you do the blanket no change certification, you may not automatically see the listings. In this case, you'll have to manually add in these listings on the show products page by clicking on the add product NDC red tab in the top right hand corner. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We've got another question that came in for Vicons, and here is the question. Each year we submit a blanket no change certificate notification. Set ID will be new. Will the set ID be new each time? Also, will the version number always be 1?
Thank you for that question. Yes, the set ID will automatically be set and will be different every year, and the version number will always be set as 1. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. Moving on to our next panelist. Got a few questions that came in for Oscar Bautista. And here is the first question. I received a submission failed error when product reporting. I cannot seem to fix it myself. What information should I submit when requesting help?
Thank you for the question. You can send us an email and include the core ID, submission ID, which is also called submit ID, which are identifiers of the submission that begin with the letters C as in Charlie, I as in India, or C as in Charlie and D as in Delta, along with either a screen capture or the errors listed. Um, the questions can come in either to CDER Direct at fda.hhs.gov or to compounding@fda.hhs.gov. Please double check on the CDER Direct help email. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. I have one more question for Oscar Bautista, and here's the question. What happens if I just registered, but my initial reporting spans over 2 reporting periods? How do I handle that?
Okay, so this is about outsourcing facilities that report with FDA under Section 503. When CDER Direct receives your registration and then you try to submit your reporting, it's going to ask, per the requirements in the statute, to report the last 6 months of compounding at your facility. And sometimes you started compounding, let's say, in the middle of a reporting period, and your registration date is a little later. You will be able to, in CDER Direct, it will split the report and ask you to provide separate quantities for products compounded in each period. So you should be able to identify the products, the quantity that was compounded in one period, and then the quantity that was compounded in the following period. You will still need to submit another report, which is the report that you submit twice a year for a full compounding period. But CDER Direct will handle the reporting that needs to be split for when your registration is in the middle of a reporting period. Thank you.
Thank you for responding to that question. We've got a question that just came in for Leila Raju Isfandiari, and it's the following. Can anyone submit registration or listing data or request an LC on behalf of the company?
Thanks, Ray. So although technically anyone can create any submission and send it to FDA using CDER Direct on behalf of other companies, it is legally restricted that only the authorized person can do that. And that would be someone from the company or its US agent, if it is a foreign manufacturer or distributor. Obviously, there are vendors that are hired in some cases that can send those on behalf of the company. So they must work with the company to assume correct information is submitted to FDA. Anyone that is in charge of registration and listing submission is assuming responsibility to submit correct information, complete information to FDA. We have had cases where companies or individuals registered, listed, or requested labeler codes on behalf of other companies without their authorization, and that is legally not allowed. And there might be some legal actions against those individuals if they were not authorized to do so.
Thank you for responding to that question. We have just a little over 1 minute left, and this will be our final question. And it is addressed to Leila Raju-Isfandari. And here is the question: how do you determine the lead center?
So I believe that question is in reference to our combination product presentation, and obviously combination products include products that are under different centers' jurisdiction. And in order to find out which center has the lead, if you have any questions, and if your product is a combination product, then you will have to contact Office of Combination Products to make that determination for you.
Well, that's all the time we have for questions in this panel. A huge thank you to our speakers and panelists for answering numerous questions that came in for our audience and providing numerous demonstrations. We'll now enter into our lunch break until 1:40 p.m. Eastern Time. Enjoy your lunch.